A storm was brewing in the air, thick with the kind of tension that makes your skin prickle, as I stepped into Iron Pulse Gym. My name is Alex, 51 years old, a former Special Forces operative who traded combat zones for a quiet life in Boulder, Colorado. The young guy strutting toward me, all cocky grin and flexed biceps, thought he could intimidate me. His name was Ethan, and for the past 3 months, he'd been training my wife, Laura. Their sessions stretched late into the evening, punctuated by cryptic texts that pinged at odd hours, the kind of details that make a husband's gut twist with suspicion. I leaned against the gym's entrance, watching Ethan close the distance with the swagger of a man who believed he was untouchable. The after-work crowd buzzed around us, tech workers shaking off cubicle stress, college kids peacocking for their peers. The scene was primed for a showdown, and Ethan knew it. "You're not enough for her, old man," Ethan taunted, his voice slicing through the hum of treadmills and clanging weights. He wanted a spectacle, craved the eyes of the gym-goers to witness him, dismantling the aging husband who couldn't keep up. I didn't bite. Instead, I eased onto a nearby bench, methodically untying my weathered hiking boots. The laces, frayed but reliable, felt familiar in my hands, like the tools I'd trusted in the field. Ethan trailed me, his confidence swelling as he mistook my silence for surrender. "Laura's told me everything," he said, positioning himself so the mirrored wall framed his chiseled silhouette. "How you've let yourself go, how you don't even try anymore." The crowd was starting to circle, phones already out, hungry for the drama of an older guy getting schooled. Social media thrives on moments like this. I slipped off my right boot, setting it down with care. Ethan kept talking, feeding his performance. His physique a testament to hours in the gym, lean muscle, strict diet, the works. He looked strong, the kind of strong that impresses people who don't know better. "Last chance, Grandpa," he said, popping his knuckles for effect. "Walk out now, or Laura's gonna hear how you embarrassed yourself." I worked on my left boot, taking my time, letting the crowd's anticipation simmer. They wanted a fight, a clash of youth versus experience. What they didn't see was that Ethan had already lost the moment he turned this into a public stunt. I looked up at him, meeting his eyes for the first time since I'd walked in. "You finished, kid?" My voice was steady, cutting through his bravado. Laura and I had met 15 years ago, when I was fresh out of the military, still wired from years of high-stakes missions. She was a financial planner, all sharp blazers and warm smiles, handling pushy clients with a grace I admired. We married after 2 years, bought a home in Broomfield, dreamed of kids that never came. Special Forces taught me to read people, to spot shifts in behavior. Laura's had been changing for months, longer gym visits, tighter outfits, a coolness in her tone when she talked about her day. I'd brought it up once, softly, and she'd laughed it off as a fitness kick. Ethan's name crept into our conversations slowly. First as her new trainer, then as Ethan says this move targets glutes better, then as late-night texts she swore were just workout plans. 3 weeks ago, I'd driven by Iron Pulse during Laura's supposed session time. Her car wasn't there. When I asked later, she claimed she'd switched to morning workouts, but her gym bag sat untouched in the hall closet, and she came home smelling of jasmine, not sweat. I started watching closer, the way I used to track threats in Fallujah. Laura showered the second she got home, even after claiming she'd done so at the gym. Her phone, always face down at dinner, was a new habit. Small signs, but they added up. Yesterday I saw them at a downtown cafe, not the gym. Laura laughing, her hand grazing Ethan's arm in a way that wasn't professional. They didn't notice me, but I saw enough. Ethan probably thought he was the first young guy to turn an older woman's head, that his youth and biceps gave him an edge I'd lost. He didn't know Special Forces. Training wasn't just about strength, it was about timing, about applying just the right force at just the right moment. I'd ignored the warning signs for too long, trusted Laura when I should have questioned. That was my mistake. But Ethan's was worse. He'd made this personal public a matter of pride. I stood from the bench, boots neatly tied. Ethan was still performing, soaking up the crowd's attention, oblivious to the shift in the air. "So, what's it gonna be, old man?" he sneered, rolling his shoulders. "You gonna do something or just sit there like you do at home?" That jab stung, not because it hurt, but because it confirmed Laura had been sharing our private life, painting me as the distant husband who'd let her down. I finished stretching, feeling the familiar ache in my joints. Ethan saw it as weakness, not knowing those aches came from years of missions he couldn't imagine. "Ethan," I said, my voice calm but firm, "you've been training my wife for 3 months. He smirked, thinking he'd hooked me into his game. "Yeah, and she's real committed. Loves her sessions." The crowd snickered at the implication, and Ethan leaned into it, flexing for the cameras. "Committed," I echoed, nodding. "Laura always sees things through." Something in my tone made him falter, but he doubled down. "Maybe you should learn from her, old-timer. Figure out how to keep a woman happy." I scanned the gym, 38 people watching, most filming, 2 exits. One behind Ethan, one to my right. He stood with his weight forward, a showy stance he'd probably mimicked from fight videos. Good for posturing, bad for balance. Know what I learned in 12 years of Special Forces, Ethan? I asked, rolling my shoulders. Patience. Waiting for the perfect moment. He laughed mockingly. Special Forces? Sure, and I'm a Green Beret. The crowd chuckled, fully on his side, ready to see the young stud take down the old guy. That's when I let a different smile cross my face, not the polite one I'd worn coming in, but the one my squad knew meant business. "You're right about one thing," I said, settling into a stance he wouldn't recognize. "This is already over." Ethan swung first, a right hook loaded with gym-built power, aimed at my jaw in front of 38 witnesses. I shifted left, his fist grazing past my ear by an inch. His momentum pulled him forward and I nudged his shoulder, sending him stumbling into a rack of kettlebells. The crash echoed like a gunshot, weight scattering across the floor. The crowd gasped, then laughed, phones capturing Ethan's red-faced scramble to stand. "Lucky move, old man," he growled, but his voice wavered. "Was it?" I asked, still rooted in place. He charged again, low, like a linebacker going for a tackle. I sidestepped at the last second, guiding his momentum into a stationary bike. The thud of his face hitting the handlebars silenced the room for a split second before laughter erupted again. Ethan staggered up, hair disheveled, confidence cracking. "What the hell?" he muttered, dazed. "You're predictable," I said evenly. "You dip your shoulder before you swing. Lean too far before you charge. Rookie mistakes." The gym was quiet now, save for the hum of phones recording. Ethan's tough guy act was unraveling in real time. "Fight me like a man," he shouted, lunging with another wild swing. I caught his wrist, redirected his arm and sent him crashing into a squat rack. The metal rattled as he hit it sideways, the sound reverberating through the gym. More phones joined the fray, some probably streaming live. Ethan was panting now, sweat soaking his tank top, his smirk replaced by panic. "How are you doing this?" he demanded, wiping blood from a cut on his cheek. 12 years in Special Forces," I said. "You thought I was bluffing." His eyes narrowed, pride keeping him from backing down. Despite the growing realization, he'd misjudged me. "I don't care who you were," he spat. "You're just an old man now." He swung again, a desperate haymaker. I ducked, let him spin off balance, and gave a light push that sent him tumbling into a stack of weight plates. The crowd scattered as 10, and 15-pounders rolled across the floor, their laughter now a roar. "Stay down, kid," I said almost gently. "You're making this worse." But Ethan was too far gone, his Gym King reputation crumbling. He needed to land something to save face. Grabbing a 10-pound dumbbell, he swung it like a bat. The crowd's gasps turned sharp. This was no longer a show. I caught his wrist mid-swing, pressed a nerve point I'd mastered in training. The dumbbell clattered to the floor as his hand went limp. "Assault with a weapon," I said quietly, still holding his wrist. "Sure you want that on record with 38 witnesses?" Ethan's face drained of color. He yanked against my grip, but it didn't budge. 12 years of combat training versus 3 years of gym reps, no contest. "Let me go," he whispered, defiance gone. I released him, stepping back. He cradled his hand, fear replacing the arrogance that had started this. "You want to know what I really learned in Special Forces, Ethan?" I said, loud enough for the crowd. "How to spot threats. How to see when someone's feeding intel to the wrong side." The gym fell silent, the weight of my words sinking in. "I've been watching you and Laura for months," I continued. The cafe meetups that weren't workouts. The late-night texts about schedules. The way she started showering twice a day and hiding her phone at dinner. Ethan's face went ghostly. He hadn't expected this to go public. Laura told you about our marriage, didn't she? I pressed. How I'm always working. How I'm not there for her. How the sparks faded. Ethan glanced around, trapped by the crowd and their phones. What she didn't tell you, I said, is that I've been working overtime to cover her dad's heart surgery. I've been distant because I'm researching doctors, fighting insurance companies, making sure he gets the best care. The silence deepened. Ethan's shallow breaths the only sound. Laura doesn't know yet, I added. I was saving it as a surprise. But I think she deserves the truth about both of us. I pulled out my phone, dialed Laura, and put it on speaker. The ringtone cut through the gym's tension. Alex? Laura's voice was clear, tinged with worry. I'm just leaving work. Is everything okay? I'm at Iron Pulse, I said. Eyes locked on Ethan. Talking with your trainer. A pause. Oh, I can explain. No need, I cut in. Ethan's been telling everyone how dedicated you are to your workouts. Ethan shook his head, mouthing no at the phone. Alex, please, Laura said, voice tight. Let me come there and we can talk privately. I think we're done talking, I said. Ethan's been explaining how he's man enough to take another man's wife. Right, Ethan. He looked ready to bolt, the crowd's phones capturing every second of his downfall. Laura, I continued, find a new gym. And Ethan, maybe find a new career. I hung up, pocketing the phone. Ethan was inching toward the exit, his reputation in tatters. Where you going? I called as he reached the door. Thought you wanted to humiliate me. He froze, hand on the handle, caught between shame and fear. This is over, he mumbled, barely audible. Oh, it's over, I agreed, stepping closer. He flinched, pressing against the door. Those videos, I said, nodding at the phone still aimed at him, they're already hitting the internet. By morning, every gym in Boulder will know about Ethan Carter, the trainer who got schooled by a 51-year-old. You set me up, he whispered. No, kid. You did that yourself. I just let you run your mouth. The crowd was eating it up. Ethan's downfall live-streamed for the world. One more thing, I added. Check your contract. Most gyms don't take kindly to trainers messing with married clients. Bad for business when it goes viral. Ethan's face went gray. He hadn't considered that. Please, he started, but I raised a hand. Consequences don't care about please. Ethan, you wanted to take my wife, embarrass me in public. Now you live with the cost. I stepped aside, giving him a clear path. Free advice. Next time you challenge a man, know who you're dealing with. Before he could bolt, Laura burst through the door, breathless, her face flushed. Alex, wait. She stopped, taking in Ethan's busted lip, disheveled hair and defeated slump. What happened? She asked. Your boyfriend tried to teach me a lesson, I said, calm as ever. Didn't go his way. Laura's eyes darted between us. The scattered weights, the crowd still filming. Ethan, she said, uncertain. But Ethan couldn't look at her. His alpha image shattered. This isn't how I wanted you to find out, Laura said, her voice small. Find out what? I asked. That my wife's been cheating with a kid who can't even land a punch? I knew months ago. Ethan shoved past her, fleeing into the night. Laura stood frozen, the crowd's phones documenting her shame. Alex, please, she said. Let me explain. I shook my head. No need, Laura, it's clear. I walked to the front desk, where the manager stood, jaw slack, having watched the whole thing. Might want to tighten up your trainer policies, I said quietly, and get better insurance. I turned to Laura, still rooted in the middle of the gym. When you get home, I said, loud enough for the crowd, you'll find divorce papers on the counter. My lawyer has photos from your cafe dates with Ethan, plus the texts. Private investigators are worth every penny. Her face paled. You hired a detective? Special forces taught me to know my enemy, I said. Ethan thought this was about muscles. You thought I was too old to notice what was happening in my own home. I paused, letting the weight settle. The house is in my name. The cars, too. I closed our joint accounts yesterday, legally, of course. Oh, you can't, she whispered. Already done, I said. Oh, and ask Ethan about his job. Iron Pulse won't like this kind of publicity. I glanced at the gym one last time. Ethan's water bottle and towel, abandoned by the squat rack. The crowd still filming. "Enjoy your workout," I said, and stepped into the cool Boulder night. 6 months later, I sat in my new downtown loft, sipping coffee and skimming the morning news. A headline caught my eye. Iron Pulse Gym had shuttered after viral videos, tanked their reputation, and drove clients away. Ethan Carter had tried to land jobs at other gyms, but the footage of him getting outmaneuvered by a man twice his age followed, him like a shadow. Last I heard, he was stocking shelves at a vitamin shop in Longmont. His fitness influencer dreams crushed by 20 minutes of video. Laura had moved in with her cousin after the divorce. She'd fought for the house, but the evidence of her affair made her case dead on arrival. Colorado's no-fault laws didn't help when it came to splitting assets. I'd taken up trail running again, rediscovering the rush of Boulder's open spaces, the Flatirons looming in the distance. My phone pinged with a text from my brother in Oregon. "Saw the gym clips online. Handled it like a pro. Proud of you." I smiled, setting the phone down. The videos had blown up, but not how Ethan expected. They'd become a lesson in the gap between looking tough and being tough, between flash and substance. That evening, I drove to the foothills and watched the sun dip below the Rockies, painting the sky in hues of fire. For the first time in months, I felt unburdened. Ethan's story became a warning whispered in Boulder's fitness scene, his humiliation looping endlessly online, killing any chance of reclaiming his old status. Laura faced her own reckoning. Her affair laid bare for all to see, costing her not just our marriage, but her place in the community she'd once navigated with ease. The videos ensured their choices would follow them, a permanent record of their mistakes. Sometimes the best way to answer betrayal isn't with fists or fury, but with the patience to let people expose themselves and face the fallout of their own making.